Hey guys, thanks for joining me. It's Fred coming at you live. This is out of Phoenix, Arizona, a report. Let's watch it, and then we'll talk on the other side.
Officers violently arrested this man. Why? It's because he insulted one of them. We uncovered this case, and it's now cited in the DOJ's final investigation against Phoenix police. I'm ABC 15 Chief Investigator Dave Biskobing, and this is another story in a special series. We're taking the DOJ's written report and turning it into video. Now, the video you just saw is part of a larger pattern. The DOJ found it's a pattern of Phoenix officers unlawfully retaliating against critics. The feds covered that issue on pages 81 through 84. And as always, we want you to follow along. Just scan the code for an official copy of the DOJ's report.
I was knocking on your window.
Phoenix PD officers unlawfully arrest or use force in response to criticism, insults, or perceived disrespect during daily encounters. Often, within seconds, officers react with force to verbal slights. That's what the DOJ wrote, and that's exactly what we exposed.
In your way until you stop. Don't.
You know, guys, the sad thing is we're playing right into their hands, or they're playing into their hands. They're mad because somebody has insulted them or criticized them, and instead of trying to correct the issue or discussing it with the person why they perceived this opinion of the police, instead of asking them what happened to you, what's caused you to think like this guy immediately grabs them and slams them into the car, and you'll see what goes on here. But, you know, that just made a bad situation worse. The guy already didn't respect the police. He already didn't want nothing to do with them as far as friends or companionship or, anything like that. Whatever how you, I don't always choose the best words, but, you know, you would think that the officer would say, hey, what's the problem? What made you... We're not all like that. You must have had a bad experience. But instead of saying that and trying to flip this guy, trying to turn him around, his thinking about the police and trying to let him see that, hey, they are good police officers out there. What does he do? He takes offense to it and grabs them and slams them into the car and into the ground. You'll see what the guy looks like when we're done here.
Well, this arrest didn't make the news. No deaths, no shots. So while a case like this flies under the radar, it's also the kind of arrest that can grab the attention of federal investigators. Remember, right now in Phoenix police are under a top-to-bottom Department of Justice investigation.
It turns out it was a case that caught the DOJ's attention because it's listed as their top example. Quote, for instance, while this investigation was ongoing, in 2022, Phoenix PD officers slammed a man into a police cruiser and began to arrest him seconds after he insulted an officer. Our story showed what happened.
We're across the street from where it happened. When did it happen?
Guys, the law doesn't allow for us to arrest just because we've been insulted.
So it happened August 2nd of 2022.
This is Kenny Ronald McDonald, and we're across the street from PLEA, the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association, the police union. It's not the wisest place to do what Kenny did. While an officer was parked in the PLEA parking lot, he rode by and insulted the officer. Now, the audio doesn't begin until this point.
Have a good day.
Another officer shows up.
You know we could go code 6 and for right and left to center. We could.
They claim Kenny continued to insult them from the sidewalk. After 10 minutes, the second officer pulls out of the parking lot. You can see Kenny ride up, knock on the window.
Can you help me out with something? What do you need? There's a bunch of people that need help over. You guys help people, right? What do you need? Do you help people? I'm asking.
The man confronted the officer to point out that police were not helping unhoused people across the street. As the man complained, the officer told him, by arguing, he was obstructing police operations.
Wow.
Yeah, getting in my way. It's called obstructing police operations. Oh, yeah? I'm going to a call right now. So, if you don't need anything... I wasn't in your way until you stopped. Okay.
The man laughed and called the officer a dumb. Immediately, the officer grabbed the man's arm and slammed him into the police cruiser in order to arrest him.
I called him a dumb.
And it's very clear, that sent him over the edge. And, yeah, he arrested me.
Our reporting also exposed other problems with the arrest. Problems not cited in the DOJ's report. For example, Phoenix officers are not allowed to physically force someone to provide fingerprints, but they did.
I'm not going to give you my fingerprints, man. It's not up to you. I know, but I'm just not going to. Well, it's not up to you. Okay, I know. All right, we'll pull you out and we'll force you then.
Pressure point behind the ear. Now you got to understand, this man's subdued. He's handcuffed, and the thumb behind the ear. There's a pressure point there. If you'll push on it, you'll feel the pain, and especially the way it looks like they're giving it to him there.
Relax your hand.
One of the main cops involved was this officer. We've told you about him before. He's the one who shot a protester
in the groin. Guys, that's what I'm saying. One strike and you're out. When you have an officer like that, you've got to go ahead and when there's video of abuse. Now, it's one thing to go out here and somebody just says, oh, he did this, he did that. Because then you've got he said, she said. And I agree with the benefit of the doubt being on the officer at that point, because not everybody likes the police, and if it comes to that, you won't even be able to keep a full staff. But when there's videos and when there's prior assaults, he intentionally shot somebody in the groin with a rubber bullet paper ball.
groin in 2020. The shot leading to this hate speech inspired challenge coin. Now, we also exposed that officer and another involved in this arrest.
He's still
both
there.
on the Brady list, and police and prosecutors didn't drop the charges until the morning of trial. That's when a judge ruled.
Did you see that? That's called punishment, guys. The officer stepped around. He's already handcuffed. The officer stepped around, took his wrist, and bent it back the opposite direction it's supposed to go. That's for pain. He just induced pain for nothing more than to punish this arrested subject. Now, we may not like what he says. We may not like how he looks. We may not like a lot of things. We're not allowed to just punish people because we're the police. It's just not allowed. It just belittles us. When the cuffs go on, the hands come off. This man's handcuffed.
Officials could not hide those officers' troubled pasts from the jury.
The fact that the officer was on the Brady list is relevant, and the court will deny the request that be precluded from testimony in this matter.
But Turiano wasn't the only officer on scene with a history. Remember the first officer, Brian Alvarado? Well, on the morning of trial, prosecutors claimed they just got a new internal investigation showing Alvarado submitted timesheets requesting to be paid for more hours than he worked.
And we've got this report from Alvarado today. The state no longer believes we have a reasonable likelihood of conviction, so it's in the interest of justice.
And see, guys, that's what I have said from the beginning. I say that about federal, state, county, city. Anytime a person is on charges, criminal charges especially, the defendant should have the right to the personnel file of that police officer. Because, see, that would make the police officers want to keep a better and cleaner record. Because the first thing that should happen is in discovery and request for exculpatory evidence for a client, you should be given the police officer's personnel file. And any disciplinary action that he's faced, any untruthfulness, any dishonesty, any drug charges, anything that is in his record. Because, see, there's people out there that are actually prosecuted for something of less consequence than what the officer himself has been charged with, at least administratively. And when you think about that, that's sad. You know, there's a law on the books, the feds lying to the FBI. If you lie to the FBI, that's 5 years. You may not even be charged with the original crime, but if you told them a mistruth by mistake or by intentionally, it's lying to the FBI and you're going to get 5 years. However, if the FBI lies to the FBI, it's called lack of candor, and they get wrote up for it. they get disciplinary action. That is things that should be placed in not only the agent's file, but every police officer, every state trooper, every deputy, every city police. And we should have, or the client, the attorney for the defendant, should have access through discovery of the personnel file for that police officer to see if maybe the client's record, the defendant, has probably got a cleaner record than the officer who's trying to charge his client. Let's finish up here.
Here's the last thing.
You can't see it there because it's so fast, but there's blood on the ground where they've rubbed his nose on the asphalt and busted his face. And this is somewhat like happened to Mr. William Good, by Officer T.J. Godby with the Stanford Police Department when he was arrested.
DOJ wrote about this arrest. When we spoke to the man, he told us he had multiple cuts and bruises from the encounter and continues to experience nerve damage from his injuries over a year later. He explained that he sometimes changes his route to avoid passing a police.
There's a picture of his face. See, they went and he was going for the ear again there for the pressure point. Once again, there's a difference in arresting somebody, taking them into custody, transporting them from point A to point B, lodging them in the jail. That's it. That's what our job should be. These guys are doing nothing more. They're trying to punish this man so much because he called them dumb butts or because he was riding around on his bicycle.
Station. I'm moving around the city much differently, he said.
You bring this on yourself. Oh, yeah.
You brought this on yourself, the officer said. You know, he's now he's afraid of the police. Now he goes around. He's not bothering them anymore. Don't worry. He's not going to try to aggravate them, try to irritate them. He's not going to do that no more. They taught him. He's learned his lesson. But in the meantime, they've caused this man right here to hate every police officer he will ever see. No matter what department or agency, he's going to always resent police officers because of what happened to him that day.
I'm proud of your bravery for surviving.
The bottom line here, the DOJ says Phoenix officers don't understand free speech, and they don't understand that you can't hurt someone or arrest someone just because they get called a bad name. And the internal investigation into the incident you just saw highlights that further. Records show 2 officers were given a written warning for forcibly taking...
Oh, wow. A written warning. See, that's what I'm telling you about court records. That written warning would be in their personnel file till every time they show up for court, that attorney should have access to that record to see if that officer's record is probably worse than the person that they're going up against in court. These officers should have been fired. This was excessive force. The man was in handcuffs. It should have actually been turned over to the feds for a civil rights violation. When you go in handcuffs, you're in custody, and you're at their will. You're at their mercy to protect. They're supposed to protect you, not punish you.
Taking fingerprints, but there was no investigation into whether the arrest was retaliatory. You can catch up on our series at abc15.com.
No evidence that it was retaliatory. What do you think? Thank you guys for joining me. Please like and subscribe and share. Catch you next time.